And there are those who think the US should be even more aggressive against Iran, even perhaps support another revolution. I spoke earlier with Dr. Mohamad Jasser, a former US Navy Lieutenant Commander and President of the American Islamic Forum for Democracy. Now, analysts, including those from the Cato and Quincy Institutes, argue that the Trump administration's maximum pressure campaign is foolish, unduly harsh and needlessly belligerent, and that it makes it less likely for there ever to be normal relations between the US and Iran. Why do you think they're wrong?
Bottom line is they're wrong. As many of us Syrian Americans, Iranian Americans know, that the maximum pressure has pushed the economy significantly internally for the mullahs. And the bottom line is the cash that Obama handed them, $150 billion, the appeasement campaign of 8 years of Obama administration did nothing but empower the mullahs, cause a genocide in Syria that the Khomeinis drove, and did nothing to contain them. Now we're seeing for the first time in the Trump administration period of just 3.5 years, significant containment of the Iranians. Their belligerence in the region has decreased significantly.
The Iranian government and some NGOs say that these sanctions are killing Iranian civilians, that they're effectively an illegal form of warfare. Why should the US continue to add sanctions on Iran if they're having such a broad impact and in the middle of a pandemic?
Well, I think it's foolish for anyone to believe that money handed to regimes that are thugs and theocrats is somehow going to get to the people. It empowers the people. Every genuine freedom-loving Iranian American, Iranian that I've talked to on the ground in Tehran, and those working against the genocidal Assad regime, those working against Hezbollah in Lebanon, will tell you that the best way to contain them is to sanction them, because you have to cut off the jugular, which is the bypassing of sanctions, and you have to cut off the jugular, which is financing them.
How do you square the United States' aggression towards Iran, often citing human rights abuses as a rationale, with its embrace of Saudi Arabia, a theocracy roundly decried for its human rights abuses?
That's a great question. And the bottom line is we realized after the war in Iraq, after 9/11, many of us, as our entire foundation is truly founded on defeating political Islam, on defeating theocracy, advancing the ideas of freedom and liberty and secularization and the separation of mosque and state. If we want to get there, I don't think anybody has a leg to stand on that believes that you can win this militarily. So once you believe there's no military solution, you look at the Abraham Accords. For the first time now, you have imams in the Emirates reciting passages as to why Muslims should be equal friends with the Jews, reciting theological arguments from the pulpits in the Emirates, why we should be friends with the state of Israel, the legitimate state of Israel, flying flags of the Emirates with Israel. Saudi Arabia now is beginning to loosen up some of its rules. And yes, we should be much tougher on our friends to tell them it needs to be theologically underpinned with reform. So the bottom line is if you don't believe there's military solutions to this, anyone who believes that ultimately, I mean, Iran is different in that right now we're pushing, I think, a pressure to the point that revolution will eventually take hold, which is the best form of anti-nuclear containment of the Iranian regime.